But I also want to ensure that if there are common things that we can learn and implement kind of across the board, it's like I am that sort of person that will steal good ideas and try to implement them in as many places as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, my name's Jackie Porter. For those watching the recording, I'm the group manager of the Verify product team. I'm here with Craig Norris, tech writing manager.
Yep, thank you. and we're basically talking about ways that we can, how technical writing is currently working with the Verify stage, but also finding requirements or other particular types of things or improvements or ideas or just general conversations about how, technical writing can be a better resource for the developer teams as it pertains to product documentation development and other improvements.
Absolutely. Well, I think on the Verify team, we have a really great overlap with technical writing in that we always bring technical writing early into the milestone, into the issues, especially when it comes to design planning. So we always, if there's front end changes, we will typically, I haven't found a time where an issue that didn't have a design so far, because I just recently have been transplanted into the pipeline execution group as a hands-on product manager. And then I was promoted into the group manager role from release management. So when we look at my interactions with the technical writing and engineering teammates, which is like design and front end and back end engineering, I typically see, two different interactions. One of them is in the planning design phase of the feature or correction of the bug, where we're creating like UI text, or we're checking if this makes sense from an experience perspective. And then the other part is during the actual like implementation of the issue. We may go back and forth with technical writing about how should this documentation look. And that's when the engineer will typically proactively ping the technical writer inside of the merge request for review. Going back to one of the points that you mentioned early on in the conversation of wanting to be more proactive and want to like shift tech writing left into our planning process, all of these actions are still like a little reactive in that tech writing is typically brought in as the designs are finishing up for contribution of like UI text or even like user experience when it comes to, should we add like a tooltip that then redirects to a documentation page, which documentation page may be best for this. So those kind of consultation pieces. And then of course, like actual reviews and the merge request for the documentation is all like, hey, you may have been pinged on this during like design 3-4 months ago, and we're now instrumenting it. Please review this documentation.
So I do have one question. So we have issues from product design, from the designers, from UX, and I say this, we are part of UX, but from the designers,
right. From the product design side, yeah.
So we have issues that are created there, and there are conversations with PMs and developers and all of that, and these are fleshed out into real ideas. And there are areas for us to have conversations as part of, like you said, the UI text, the tooltips, all of these different types of things, and that's one issue. But then when does that issue then get recreated or created again over on this side, on the planning side, in the GitLab project itself to be actually be implemented? Or do we sometimes work directly off of the product design? This is what it should look like, make it go do this. Okay, let's just go connect MRs to that particular product design issue and just kind of work from there.
So typically the product design issues that come from a user insight will be implementation issues that get built inside of the GitLab.org project. Okay. So those are implementation issues. Okay. Typically the UX insights are in Dovetail, and if we have an actionable insight, those will get transcribed directly into the GitLab.org project for prioritization, scoping, and technical proposals.
Okay. And so Okay, so that means that we can look in one place, which is in the
Mhm.
GitLab repo for these particular issues.
Right.
And if there could be some sort of my expectation would be that, or my thinking, not expectation, my thinking would be that any sort of user interface change or anything like that, or anything that has anything to do with a feature change or
Mhm.
a behavior change of the product, that would be something that would more than likely be a product documentation modification kind of thing anyway. And so I would think that in many of those circumstances, if we could get some sort of indicator that even just says documentation on this, just so that we can at least know, hey, this is something that's going to have a documentation impact because it's a UI change, it's a UI add, it's a new feature, it's a change in behavior or anything like that. Probably documentation. I'm just going to throw the documentation label on there just so that maybe as part of the planning process, maybe as part of just general research of things going on, or just or whatever, we would just be apprised of knowing, oh, there's a documentation thing there, let me take a look. Oh, that involves us, let me.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say it sounds a little bit like you want to kind of detect capacity and like forecast capacity of tech writers.
Ultimately, that would be wonderful if we could. So
Okay.
one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to get a better sense on a per technical writing label, on a per technical writer level, what's possible, what's possible for this particular milestone based off of their particular group assignments, because we don't just have one technical writer per one developer group. We have multiple developer groups that are associated with each technical writer, so we have to balance. It's always a balancing act.
Right.
But we're trying to get a better sense of what capacity does a technical writer have, what can they do, so that we can have a conversation with the PMs and say, it's like, this is kind of what my capacity is looking like with documentation, and so perhaps these are things that I can more fully develop. Maybe these are things that I just kind of, this is okay, and I will revisit at some particular point in the future. Maybe some of these things are just, you're just going to have to kind of push through. But instead of, here we are coming up to the end of the milestone, are you done with this? It's like, no, we would rather actually let you kind of know, these are what we're focusing on, and these other ones we will have to focus on at a later time because of reasons. Or it could be, we have no problem with capacity whatsoever, smooth sailing, one less thing for you to worry about this release.
Right, right. So
That's where
taking,
we would like to be.
yeah, so taking a little bit of a step back, I think in the verify stage, we do have opportunities to maybe add additional labels to our existing issues that could help us understand like what's the forecasted requirements for tech writing, because inside of each engineering implementation issue, if there's a significant user experience change, the definition of done in order for that issue to be closed requires documentation to be added.
Hmm.
So with every change that we do and verify, the inherent definition done in the development process is that documentation needs to be included.
Right.
So with that, like, we may need to make sure that we're always adding like the documentation label specifically to those issues. So then we can key off of like, okay, if this is something that's in documentation, workflow, in development, maybe it's tech writer doing or tech writer backlog. And those are ways to key off of the labels.
So we do actually have something in there. So
Right.
we have a technical writing label, which is, so ideally what the technical writing label indicates is that we're involved with a particular issue. So
Mm-hmm.
we have identified the issue and it's something that we are going to be doing and or have done. And then we also have a TW doing label,
Yeah.
TW-doing label.
I've seen that on a release post, MRs, where I'm engaging with Marcel.
So
So
what that indicates is that we're working on it. It may not necessarily yet be done, but it's something that is in progress. And then we have a TW finished label. So it's a scoped label. So TW doing, TW finished. TW finished is normally when we indicate we have completed the work on this particular item. Ideally, it's meant more for merge requests that we don't own. So in other words, perhaps it's a shared code documentation merge request. And so TW finished is where we can indicate we finished with our portion of the documentation side. So we don't want to be a blocker. We're letting you know that this merge request that we can't merge because there's code involved with it, but we're done.
Yes. So taking another step back, like I'm trying to find ways to inject tech writing into our current engineering issues. So I'm wondering if we can repurpose these labels that I know we currently have for tech writing and maybe add them to particular issues that we know are going to be flagged for implementation in the upcoming milestone. I think the biggest gap is for tech writing scoped labels is that you don't have like an in queue or ready for tech writing kind of workflow label. So you don't have like a backlog to indicate that.
So if I'm following correctly, would it be kind of one of those things where you're saying that it's a documentation related item? It may not necessarily be ready for technical writing to work on yet, but it would be an indicator from the developers to say, hey, technical writing, this is something that we have prepared for you and we're ready for you to work on. You can go look for this particular type of thing. I did not really think of that. But basically a readiness statement from the developer to say, technical writing, you can go take a look at this.
Right.
Yeah. Let me chew on that. I don't have an answer for that one. And maybe it's an extension of the scope label. Maybe it's another label. I would rather it not be another label. Maybe it's an extension of the scope label to say, almost like a ping, like you said, TW ping for readiness.
Because what you could also do is like set up a subscription for tech writers that they're subscribed to issues once it goes into this ready for tech writing a label that they get notified they get a to do for it. And I think that like that's an opportunity to normalize your capacity and to understand how many things are incoming and how many things are outgoing per milestone. Because it doesn't sound like you necessarily have like an incoming metric.
We absolutely do not, because we go and look for things, and we look for, like I said, the documentation label. We put the technical writing label on there as needed. We control the information understanding of kind of where we are when we're in the process. But you're right, we don't have that, hey, we're ready for the technical writers to provide assistance in these things.
And typically, I know that this is like a direct reach out to the tech writer from the engineer in the current workflow. Like it'll be, this is ready for review. But I think it might be interesting for the team, the tech writer, to know what's my landscape in 14.1 that will need tech writing review eventually.
Right. And because they can be done with it, but not necessarily need a review yet. And it provides maybe a little of advance opportunity to be able to have a little bit of back and forth and discussion, as compared to, oh crap, here we are at the review time, and the developer may be busy by that point.
Exactly. And then there's like a pinch point and a bottleneck between tech writing review and engineering review at the end of the milestone, which could cause an issue to slip. So there might be an opportunity for us to start working on the documentation earlier in the milestone to normalize the intra-milestone workflow of tech writing, so that they're not all getting slammed 2 weeks before the end of the milestone. Because I imagine that's how reviews are going right now. They're getting hammered 2 weeks before the end of the milestone versus like staging documentation upfront. Because, in an ideal case, like the engineer knows how it's going to work, so they can frame out like what they think it's going to do, and then do a first draft pass with the tech writer, so that the tech writer already has context. And then once the engineer finishes building the feature, they go back and true up the documentation and then re-review it with the tech writer. I mean, there's a couple of different opportunities to optimize that process in an iterative way.
And it kind of begs the question of, the review process could continue to be utilized, but it could also be that conversation could conceivably happen exclusively within the scope labels, so that you don't even have to go through the review process.
Exactly.
You just basically look and see, all right, we've pinged them, we're ready to go. They're working on it. I can see they're working on it because they have a doing label on there. They're done, finished. We don't even have to talk to the technical writers.
Exactly.
We're done.
Yes, right, exactly. And I think right now there's probably that visibility on the merge requests, and where we're missing that is in the issue, where that's the focal point by which product managers are projecting communications to users, to the community, to customers. So if there's some sort of way that, and it might not be necessary either, but I'm thinking about things that don't have merge requests on them that are just beginning the milestone. I think that that's where you may want to consider looking at forecasting your capacity off of issues rather than.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, issues are the place where we have the conversation.
Right.
We use merge requests to get an understanding of how painful was the work, whereas issues are, what do we need to invest to try to get the work done?
Totally.
Issues are forward looking, merge requests are like, what did we do?
Yeah, execution based.
Exactly.
So something I did want to share with you is this group opportunity canvas that I conduct kind of on a quarterly basis. And a part of my view as a product manager at the group level is to look at launch and growth and find opportunities for us to really consider utilizing all of the different resources that we have available to us as a team. So this is like marketing campaigns, tutorials, product managers, doing continuous interviewing with customers, with different pieces of features, but also something that would be that I've done at my previous company with tech writers is like create a tech writing roadmap for these big boulders in our vision, so that we are prioritizing the user experience of our documentation for these areas that are about to have an immense amount of development to them. So if we know that in our backlog we have 60 variables bugs, and we want to burn down 50% of those variables bugs, it might be really important for us to have that dialogue with tech writing about improving the flow and the user experience of the existing documentation, so that once we improve all of these bugs and maybe add some features, that users know how to best utilize the existing features available to them in GitLab. So it's more about like that discoverability conversation, but having that at a quarterly basis, so that we can create these, I guess, story arcs inside of our documentation, because documentation can't be its own marketing mechanism, right?
It's effectively communicating these group and stage based goals, effectively into our backlog, and ensuring that they get prioritized along with the other work that we're doing, or at least prioritized effectively, and not necessarily just thrown into the backlog and done whenever, but affording that ability to be able to set an import, set a priority, set a, this is important to us, please prioritize this over some of the other work that you may have, because it's important
or making
to do these sorts of things.
Intra milestone too, like the tech writer can then push back and be like, hey, I have over 30 review MRs, but then I'm supposed to be working on this big strategic initiative. So tell me, GMP, what you think I should be doing. And this should all be transparent based off of the OKRs that we're setting for the quarter. So in my mind, like, there's a connection point of like, what metrics are we trying to drive? And if it's a focus on usability, how do we identify the areas in technical writing that allows us to forecast out the more strategic needs versus the more middle term needs versus the current milestone needs?
Yeah, yes, all of that makes absolute sense. It's allowing there to be a more well-defined conversation between product and the technical writer about these sorts of things, as compared to what we have right now, which is just a set of handshake agreements and conversations that kind of happen over time, or it's like, are you busy? It's like, as compared to a real plan, Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like we have an opportunity to, at these quarterly stage level opportunity canvases that GMPs conduct, connecting with the tech writer once that opportunity canvas has been approved by project leadership, and detailing out what are like a handful of clear action items that tech writing could commit to in the
Right.
quarter.
Right.
And I think that's an opportunity to align on the same results of the product strategy, but also help them fit along their current capacity and flow, so that we're not over inundating every milestone.
Again, part of the conversation, it becomes it becomes literally part of the conversation. This is a priority, but these are also in here. Which things do I pass along, hit another time, in order to be able to elevate certain things within this, in order to be able to help move us forward?
Right. Exactly. I completely agree with you on that. So I think one requirement that we would need to identify, though, is that in queue ready for tech writing label, because I think that that would be the forward looking scope, the roadmap that's forward looking.
Which to me is related to, but slightly different from the readiness label that we kind of talked about before. It's like that's more of the longer term. This is a priority for us as compared to the other one, which is we've been working on, we're ready for a technical writer to take a look at this issue, as compared to having a technical writer be, ensure that this is prioritized for planning, kind of thing. I see them as two separate labels.
Right.
But I have to think about it. But yes, that
I think that it could also be that you might have a ready for tech writing label, whatever that is, and it can be used in conjunction with other labels in the product development status, so that you're queuing off of where the issue is. So for example, if it's ready for tech writing and planning breakdown, that's going to be a future facing priority on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Whereas
we could leverage them.
Yeah. Whereas if it's ready for tech writing in ready for development or in dev, these are opportunities where maybe the tech writing is actually collaborating in the issue.
These are all good things.
Some food for thought. I know it's a lot, and I'm not trying to like add more work to your plate. I just want to find ways that we can solve for the problems that you were keying off of. Like as I was walking through how Verify interacts with tech writing today, seems like there might be some gaps in what we need to accomplish with tech writing's goals for results.
Yeah, I get the feeling that we're kind of keeping up, but I would like for us to be able to, again, like I said, not be quite so reactive and actually be a little bit more forward facing, because one of the things that I really want us to do is I want us to be trusted partners, as compared to, well, you've met our needs so far.
Right.
and we continue to hope that you will, but I want us to be able to walk in and go, we can meet your needs in these particular ways on a regular basis, and have a conversation as throughout.
Yeah,
this has been a lot of good information. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as you start to think about it more, if you need another clarification, or if you want to talk about it, feel free to open up an issue and we can go back and forth in that and talk about how we want to apply it inside of the Verify team.
I would be happy to. I'm going to have a conversation about this with my peer manager. So, because, between the two of us, we manage the teams, and I can venture to say you will probably see an issue, and I will be sure to copy you in it, and we will continue to work forward with this. But this is great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for connecting with me, and we should try to set up some sort of recurring touch point just to keep everything, aligned and.
Yeah, and again, you have given me a lot of information. Hopefully, at some particular point, I can return the favor more with very specific things that we can do to continue to make the Verify documentation that much better. As a general note, we are working on the CI/CD documentation is some of the most heavily visited page views. I don't know if you have seen the content audit page that we have
I think
here.
I've seen it like in a Slack message somewhere. So Yes.
So we do have the content audit. It does list all of the different pages. It actually, you can use it to find which pages are associated with which groups and stages. And all the way over to the right, it actually gives you breakdowns for page views on a per month basis for the past year. So you can actually see which pages are getting hit more or less. The CI/YAML reference file, if I remember correctly, is the actual #1, and then CI/CD is pretty much in the top 10. And we are very focused on improving those pages, and Marcel is working regularly to get improvements in place and make those pages a better reference for our internal and external users.
Right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Let me know if you need anything in the meantime, okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks.